Starting this episode with a bit of a behind-the-scenes story. Back in November of 2019, I flew out to Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina, also known as the BMW Performance Center East, as well as where they manufacture vehicles like these. And we shot 3 episodes there: the M8 Competition Coupe, the Z4 M50i, as well as the X4 M Competition Baby Buggy. It was a good day at the office. And the thing is, you saw those episodes, but you haven't seen another episode that was shot there, and that was with the X6 M50i, the V8, because there was so much going on. We only shot the in-car, not the stand-ups with this thing. So, as you know, I got tied up in January and wasn't doing much shooting. So here we are, what, 5-6 months later, and finally finished the episode. So, there you go. Let's drive this BMW that's sitting in California right now in South Carolina. Apologies for not looking entirely all that fresh, just off the last bus from LAX last night, but was eager to get out here to stunning Caesar's Head State Park just outside of Grille, South Carolina. Our job right now is same engine we've driven before, an M550, but this is a taller, bigger, I guess sportier looking carrying case. Without, here we go. Oh yeah, delivers power as per usual. However, it's not a matter of there's a lack of power or the weight is even a problem. You just need to be more prudent in using this power because you can clearly get out of control very quickly. If you push too hard around more aggressive turns there, it's fine. Here, I would argue, let's scrub off a little bit of speed because the thing you notice is the center of gravity adjustment, not so much the extra weight that it's an SUV. Other than that, it delivers power just as magnificent as in the M550. One of their better engines. No one behind us, have a bit of a straight in this stunning state park. Say that quick 3 times. Shall we? I think we shall. And brake. Oh yeah, there's a lot of dive there. Way different than an M550. Did you see my face like practically fall onto the hood? It's good. I mean, the stompers definitely work. As a matter of fact, let's try that again, but not as aggressively. Here we go. Pulls a little bit to the left side when you're not pushing it as aggressively. Long and short of the story, the brakes, like the rear end, over-engineered than they need to be for a vehicle this size and this tall. So, wunderbar. Before you and I press on any further, we need to understand some important facts. First and foremost, this weighs 5,115 pounds. That is the V8. All-wheel drive. Even if it was a 6-cylinder 2-wheel drive, it'd still be the better part of 4,700 pounds. It has over 8 inches of ground clearance. So that means high center of gravity. None of that bodes well for going around corners very quickly in beautiful South Carolina. However, this one is fitted with what BMW calls an active steering system. That means 4-wheel steering. It's also fitted with an air ride system. So now that we know that, let's go back to South Carolina. Full disclosure, you and I are in comfort mode right now. We've got a hell of a turn coming up here. Scrub some speed off, and let's understand what happens here. Oh, wow, that kind of wallows through there. There's a looseness to the steering. I'm not going to give you the whole, there you go on center field. That's not the case at all. But considering the intentions of what this is and who makes it, you and I need to go to Sport Plus. Comes very aggressively around a very aggressive turn. And the thing you notice is not so much the weight of the steering improves, it's the whole front end improves. Almost that it changes the driving dynamics from the B-pillar forward. And this is something you and I have noticed in the X5, this generation of X5, this generation of 5 Series, in that I would argue the rear suspension is over-engineered in this vehicle, which is a good thing to the point where even in the softest settings, there is significant composure. It's when you get into comfort and you push aggressively, it's a mess up front. That's the only way to put it. But when one goes back into Sport Plus, that's when it goes back into BMW steering. And then I would argue that magic, it spreads around the entire front of the vehicle. Verstanzi does. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game in mind, the options game, with today's, I want to say brown contestant, but we'll get to that later. 2020 BMW X6 M50i for a suggested retail price of built-in $85,650. To that we add an unusual shade of Manhattan green metallic. I don't know if it's me, but that looks brown, even in sunlight, but it is free. Then we add a black full merino leather interior. Now, that is the full leather, but also it's black. If the car was green or brown, I would not choose a black interior. And what's more offensive about this is that black interior is $3,350 put another way, almost 4% of the retail price of this vehicle. Now from there, we're going to skip around because BMW has an unusual habit of listing all the stuff that's included at the bottom of the Monroney and all the stuff that's expensive at the top. So things like a leather dashboard, auto-dimming driver exterior mirror, panoramic moonroof, multi-console seats that are also heated, automatic high beams, that kind of stuff is included as free. Now something that is very confusing is Apple Carplay compatibility. That is listed as included, but it's also listed as 1 year. What happens after 1 year? And after that, good news, we're going to add something called the iconic adaptive LED laser light system for $1,000. We will talk about that later. Then there is an option which I did not notice at first. I didn't notice at all on the car in South Carolina, the illuminated kidney grille. Now, those of you that are familiar with the Mercedes world, you know how you can get the star and the laurel. It can be illuminated as an option. I think that is the dumbest option on the face of this earth. Why do you want to pay to advertise somebody else's brand? This is a bit different because it's super flash. And at $500, it's a bargain on an $86,000 car. Then we add 22, count them, 22-inch M-Lite alloy wheels, which may be somewhat color coordinated with this color. Looks very good, $1,900. Then we add the premium package, which is remote engine start, head-up display, and gesture control, $1,250. Then the parking assistance package, that's parking assistance plus active park distance control and surround view with 3D view. I'd like to point out that all of that stuff is included on a fancy Hyundai Sonata. Here it's $700. And we press on to the Driver's Assistance Pro package, which includes the Extended Traffic Jam Assistant as well as the Active Driving Assistant Pro, both of which we experienced in a V8 equipped X7 out here on Sepulveda. That costs $1,700. To that, we add the last extra cost option, and I would argue the most important on an X6, which makes it somewhat sporting to drive, the dynamic handling package, which includes the integral active steering, that's four-wheel steering, adaptive M suspension pro, and then arguably the most important thing in this 5,500-pound vehicle, active roll stabilization. That is $2,600. I would argue at an $86,000 base price, that should really be included as standard and just charge me $87,000. Then the last thing is the destination charge, $995 for a total suggested retail price of $99,645. So let's make this a bit more challenging for a tall, sporting, rather powerful baby buggy. And this is where we're going to hang on for dear life. Come around here and, oh, wow, now that's surprising. So over the years, I have told you lots about the driving characteristics of my beloved third-gen Supra. Oh boy, that was interesting. That car, you need to give it some thinking time. You got to decide where you're going to put the weight in that vehicle, and then it will do pretty much anything you want, within reason. This is the same thing with a bigger asterisk on within reason. So I'm coming downhill, so wrong plane of motion, aggressively around the kind of turns most drivers wouldn't push a vehicle this expensive. And it's surprising how much composure. Now, keep in mind, this is in Sport Plus mode. But here's the part I didn't expect, at least when it comes to driving dynamics and pushing it this aggressively. There's still a semblance of ride quality in the Sport Plus mode. Like, this road is not perfect. It's not glass. You can see some imperfections, some bibs and bobs in the road. And as I push the weight kind of over there and manage it but without going into the trees, it's not knocking my intestines out like a Z51 Corvette. In this round of the options game, I listed something called the Icon Adaptive LED with Laser Light. That's BMW speak for fancy headlights. We've seen these on offer before in other BMWs, starting with the i8 in this country a couple of years ago. And these here, what, $1,000. And yeah, it's a neat trick for $1,000, but I would argue this is not the trick we want here, because remember the 992 Turbo S Coupe, the carmine red coupe we drove? That was a German market car. And it was fitted with the legal in Europe always-on high beam system. And it was really my first experience in my home area with that system. I'd experienced before in Europe, but only for short periods of time. So it was like, oh, that's cool, but you really don't understand the difference until you use it on a regular basis. And the only thing I can say is it's transformative. I would argue this is not a scientific experiment, but it was at least 60% more light at any one time, even when there was oncoming traffic. And for the avoidance of doubt, what the system does, it varies the direction of the light. So it's not high beam, low beam, it's the lights are on, but if there's oncoming traffic, it can adjust the high beam off to the side of the road so you still have a tremendous amount of light and not cause any trouble for an oncoming driver. Now, this is not to say bad on BMW, you should have that system on this car. They do. It's available in Europe and it's legal. Same with Mercedes, same with Porsche. The problem is the US government, they're dragging their feet on making this legal for sale in the US. So think of this as my push to you guys. Let's start reaching out to Washington and saying, hey, whether it's a fancy car like this, it doesn't have to be. It can be a Hyundai or a Kia. Why don't we get these systems in these cars? Because lighting, not an expensive deal if you haven't gone to Home Depot recently. And let's put these systems at least as standard in these cars. And I would argue it would have an impact on driver safety, definitely at night. As we get further down the mountain here and sort of out of the state park, we should probably roll back to comfort and dive a bit further into ride quality, because after all, this is going to be used around town for the Rugrats, even though it's not as practical. And here, full disclosure, there isn't a huge difference in ride quality between the Sport Plus, so the most full-fat setting on the dampers, and comfort. I wouldn't say that's a bad thing, because I like a stiffer riding vehicle, me personally, but then I have the practicality of a 3-year-old. I think that's something one would need to decide with an X6. Let me put this another way. It's not just the swoopy arse end that says, oh, sporting intentions. It's the setup of the adjustable suspension system that reinforces the sporting intentions. You and I need to have a come to Jesus discussion, and no, it has nothing to do with the fact that this is an SUV with a lot less you, because it's taken us broken car guys and gals, what, 7, 8 years since this thing came out, to understand why people buy these things. They replace B-segment sedans. Think of like Toyota Avalon or BMW 5 Series. And even I, a broken car guy, gets it. It's more utility, it can go to the trailhead. Okay, let's just resign ourselves to that fact. The struggle really is this. The car I had to trade to get this was a Mini EV. And I will admit, I completely fell in love with it. It was super fun to drive, but that's not why. Those cars, whether it's a Mini, a Tesla, or a Kona EV, they change your lifestyle, especially someone like me that has a 240 plug here in the hangar. It puts more time in your day, which got me to thinking about an X6. The kind of person that buys a vehicle like this they're not like massive car guys. They may like cars, but they're more into style or a brand or maybe a car with some more power like this. I mean, this thing was super fun to drive, and the suspension system underneath it makes it work. But I would argue that those people are the same people that would be more apt to be early adopters for EVs. Granted, not the people that were buying Volts and Leafs in 2010, but the kind of people like, you know what? If I can get 300 miles of range, yeah, I would buy one. And that's where we get to this. I don't see as much runway or much runway left for a gasoline version of a vehicle like this, whether it's a BMW, a Mercedes, a Lexus, whatever, as there is for a 992, a Corvette, or less expensive cars. And that's where we get to a further bit of trouble in that we already saw this one's 100 grand. If it was a 6-cylinder, it'd be 80 grand. And then you say, oh, but there's plenty of price elasticity. Look at a Tesla Model X, that's 140 grand. And that's a bigger problem because Tesla has acres of them to sell. No one buys them. Even back in 2017 when they first came out, I had friends of mine that thought they were going to wait 6 months to a year to get one. They got calls literally in 6 days. Hey man, we got a car that matches your spec, come pick it up. So this is where we get to a bit of this is like a doorway to the future. What's the price elasticity of this? It's 100 grand already. Let's say with an EV propulsion system and batteries that could make it go 300 miles, which is what it would need to go, you're talking 130, 150 grand? Is that too much? Is there a future for these things at that price? Or would battery technology need to come down significantly cheaper to make an EV derivation thing of this work? Now, I fully understand this is but one man's opinion that happens to have access to both a 240 fast charger as well as unusually cheap gas right now in which to run through a gas-guzzling vehicle like this. But the question still stands, especially considering gas prices are not static. So I'm going to turn this around to you guys. Do you agree or do you disagree? Why or why not? And most importantly, do you drive an EV? Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Once again, I thank you very much for your understanding through the recovery, as well as being unbelievably gracious to my guest host and hostesses. Until I see you in the next episode, be spät.